guarantee every single athlete who's retired will tell you that something catches up with you, whether it's your head and you're just done with it, you can't push yourself anymore, or whether it's your body. I wish I could have enjoyed those years of even more than I did. I think exercise and movement as well naturally gives people a sense of worth and achievement. Sometimes it's better for you to have a day off, have a rest day when you're really, really tired, than just push on for the sake of pushing on. Successful people.
In this Sports and Outdoor Mentors episode, I chat with Tom Bosworth MBE, double Olympian, world record holder, and now track and field agent. There'll be no shouting, "Show me the money!" Instead, Tom talks about getting through the extreme highs and extreme lows of being a professional athlete, how he's taken his 13 plus years of experience to now support other athletes on their journey, and much more. A big thanks to Leeds Beckett University and Carnegie School of Sport for allowing us to use their incredible facilities for the filming of this episode. Before we get to the episode, I do have one favour to ask. Less than 50% of people watching or listening are subscribed, so please hit the subscribe or follow button to help us reach more people so that they can also benefit from the valuable insights people like Tom share. I hope you enjoy the episode. If you do, please don't forget to like and leave a comment. So, Tom, obviously you've been athlete for a large part of your life. I think started at 11. I think you joined an athletics club.
Yep.
But I'm interested, was there anything particular that led you to that point, or any kind of influence before then that kind of drew you into this kind of athletic sports world?
No, is the short answer to that. My family were not sporty whatsoever. They just encouraged me to try different things, and going down to the athletics club was as a result of my sister going along due to her friend encouraging her to go down. And if she hadn't, and then if I hadn't turned around, or if I hadn't been sat in the car waiting for my sister to finish, and I go to my mum, I want to do a bit of athletics, who knows where my life would have led. So yeah, sport was never going to be an option for me. It was never meant to be a form of like a career, let alone just something to enjoy. So it's crazy thinking back, and like I say, for a long time as well, it just stayed a bit of fun and fitness.
Yeah, interesting. So we'll kind of jump forward a little bit to today, but we'll definitely come back to your athletic career, because there's a lot to kind of discuss and maybe dig into a little bit there, and what influence that had on where you are now. But if I understand well, today you work for a sports management company as a sports manager, sports agent. We had this discussion before about, what's the good word for that. But can you just describe a little bit about what you're doing, and also what led you maybe to that path?
Well, I mean, I joke. I did 15 years of not a real job, and I've managed to blag myself still not a real job. So I'm pretty proud of that one. But I think my colleagues would disagree. But I mean, I wanted to stay in the sport. For me, athletics, Olympic level sport was all I knew. The real world scares me very much so. It's I'm a very independent person. So for most of my career, I worked with my team, my coach. But if I didn't go training, that was on me. If I didn't perform, it's probably again on me. So whatever I did next, I was cautious about to begin with. And when I knew I was going to retire, I purposely set up and had conversations with various people about what I was going to do next, about a year in advance. So I actually signed with a commercial agent myself, because I knew there were going to be opportunities when I retired as well to do perhaps media work or other work similar, and that goes alongside everything else I do. And then a couple of opportunities came my way within the sport, and through a friend I ended up working with Blue Carpet Sports Management, which just felt right because it was track and field focused. I could sort of it was almost starting with a blank canvas, which was really excited me about building something of my own again. And it's down to me whether it's a success or not. So, about 6 months before I retired, I committed to working with them and building a track and field portfolio and really trying to support young and up-and-coming athletes, but also any athlete at any point in their career. It's really challenging, and that's something given the event I was in as well, it wasn't plain sailing, and I learned how to navigate the sport, and it's something I could certainly give back.
So we'll come back to the event that you're in, because of course it's a key influence, let's say.
Yeah.
Clearly, but maybe just so if I understand well, in your role today, you're working with athletes,
yep,
in helping them from a commercial perspective in building their career, maybe in parallel to their professional athletics career, but also after. Could you just kind of talk a little bit about that, and also maybe in your experience, having worked for one before, what makes a good sports manager, sports agent, and what are you doing to make it successful for your athletes?
Yeah, so I mean, already it's been a couple of years. I can't believe time's flying by, and it's. I think a lot of people. I mean, often when I speak to younger athletes or even their parents, if they're under 18, they're gobsmacked that you can do it as a job and earn any money. Outside the football, rugby, cricket, Formula One world. Yeah. Olympic sport is really hard to do full time. There's things like lottery funding and those sorts of avenues exist to allow an athlete to just about live as a full-time athlete. But they've already had to get to such a high level at that point. You lose so many athletes, male and female, along the way in a lot of Olympic sports. I think track and field is quite lucky. It's seen as the pinnacle sport of the Olympics. It's got a great history in our country, at least, and is taken very seriously, and there is an opportunity to earn some money and do the job full time. But a bit like life, it's about who you know, and if you're spotted at the right time, if you're having the right conversation, you could be a year too old for in some people's eyes, or you could be a year too young, or a second too slow, or there's so many different sort of inevitabilities that could lead you who knows where. Yeah. So it's certainly not straightforward, but as I say, there is the opportunity to get supported by a brand. They would offer you some, they support you and your team to try and get the most out of your setup and out of the athlete's sort of career. But again, you could, 1 minute you're the favourite and you've got a nice deal for 3 or 4 years, that comes to an end and you've had a couple of bad years along the way and you've got a smaller deal or you've got no deal at all, and the athlete just goes, oh, hang on, I've now got to get a job. Yeah. And life can change very, very quickly. So it's about keeping it real with athletes for me, massively. Yes. Is saying, I want to work with you, you're super talented, you're doing everything right, but there's no guarantees. I promise you nothing. This is a tough sport. Yeah. And as I say, you could be in one moment and out the next, and it's really daunting. But I think if you've got people who are really realistic around you, you work on what you can control and you keep the athlete's feet on the ground even when things are going very well. It's like, it might not always be going this well, so just prepare for that. And I think that's what I do quite well, and I just try and be a good person as well. You know, for an athlete to be successful, it's not just about having a deal. It's about being happy, having the right setup, good working relationship with the coach, medical team around you. All of that needs people you trust. It needs finances. Yeah. So there's so much that makes up a good supporting team nowadays.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. And looking back at your career, so obviously double Olympian, multiple world record holder. Yeah. For walking, obviously. What made up that team for you? What kind of support network and team did you have around you at that time to help you achieve what you did as an athlete?
Yeah, I look back now and I don't think you quite realise the team you have until probably until much, much later on. When you're young, you just take things for granted, I think, a little bit. So I started off with my first coach at Tunbridge Athletics Club, and then came up to Leeds Beckett Uni, where we are today. And well, the fact that I'm sat here having this conversation with you shows that they were a big player in my team, and still are now I've retired. So I came up, changed coaches. Andy Drake, my coach for, oh goodness, best get this right, 13 years, pretty much most of my international career. And he really moved me on. But then here I had a sports psychologist, sports nutritionist, the medical team here, and as I say, the uni as well, to get me through uni, and then continue supporting me, friends, family, and then an agent came in. And again, race walking, it's an unheard of event. I had to have somebody who really wanted to work for me and get me these opportunities, because it's much easier to go to a runner, a sprinter. You know, why would somebody support a race walker? So I needed a team around me that I really trusted and wanted to work with me. So, and that's what I had. And you know, they're now lifelong friends because of that. It was never a business decision. It's very personal to me.
Yeah, I'm sure. And you've spoken in the past about when you first came here to Leeds Beckett that it was pretty tough at the start, because you were moving from, let's say, and apologies if I'm using the wrong terminology here, but more of a kind of, let's say, an amateur approach to training, to something that was very professional training, but also, you know, you had lectures and courses to study. You were living on your own for the first time. So how did you handle and how did you manage that transition? Because I mean, I think most people deal with maybe one or two of those things at the same time, but to deal with three pretty major is not easy, I would guess.
No, not at all. And like you say, everyone has to move out at some point and learn how to do your own washing. And I think my mum was probably far too kind to me growing up, for that she didn't give me enough life lessons before I moved out. So there were loads of those sorts of things, bigger 18, 19-year-old learning how to look after yourself, and time management, turning up to lectures, going to lectures. And then I would train 3 or 4 times a week as a junior athlete, and managed to somehow not do very well, but make it to a GB junior level, and then come here and be expected to train every day, if not twice a day. It was a huge change, and I'd pick up little injuries, and I would still be, as I say, learning so much. And I moved from a little village to a city, finding out what a bar and a nightclub were and all these sorts of things, and going, oh, right, I've got training in the morning, but all my people I'm living with in my halls are just normal students going out. So it's a lot of life lessons there. You learn very quickly. And I would say by the time sort of the first 2 years here, I think I'd got the hang of it. And 2012 was on the horizon, big home Olympics. And I needed to improve my personal best. Over 20k was the Olympic distance we raced over, for about 3 minutes that year to go to the Olympics. It was an outside shot, and I came within 19 seconds of qualifying. And I put that down to just sort of life becoming a bit steadier.
Okay.
Because I had come to terms with living on my own. I'd got used to fending for myself a little bit, making sure I turned up for training, making sure I did my lectures, and everything sort of settled down. And I think that was clear that when there were less distractions and good routine, the improvements came quite dramatically. And it was such a shame I missed out on London to one extent, but I always put it down to probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because it gave me such motivation that went, hang on, I'm not just talking about making a British team. This is about going to the Olympic Games. This has got serious all of a sudden, and it's got real, and it made me realise what perhaps I could achieve.
Yeah, because that I had understood that maybe not making it then made it clear to you that Rio, was it Rio? Yeah, Rio's next. So Rio is the goal, and so would you say that having that goal of the Olympics was really what drove you for the coming years? And also, I'm interested to understand maybe the difference between how, as an athlete, you view the Olympics and, for example, a world champs or European champs, because Olympics seems to be the, let's say, the pinnacle.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe talk a little bit about that.
I guess the next 4 years, everything changed very, very quickly. And what I loved about being an athlete is as soon as that sort of summer was finished, September you have off, and then there's the next goal. Every day is dedicated to something, and that was the following year's World Championships in Moscow 2013. And I set myself a goal of making it. I qualified, but British Athletics decided not to take me. They didn't think I had the ability to make the top 8 or go on to medal or anything like that. So that was quite frustrating and a bit of a setback. But I knew where I was at now. I was trying to make major championships and perform at that sort of top end. 2014, I did make it. I qualified for the European Championships. And yeah, I mean, there's definitely a pinnacle of the Olympics, World Championships, Europeans, and then Commonwealth, probably in that order. But every single one has a huge meaning each year because there's only usually one championships for that year. So you want to and need to be involved for it, for sponsors, for your funding.
Okay.
It was that year that I then got on funding as well as we headed into the 2015 World Athletics Championships. And obviously my head was starting to look towards Rio and the Olympic Games the following year. And sort of that year became very clear that, actually, I'm going to qualify for Beijing. What could I actually go and do there? So my aim was to finish top 20 and try and go after the 20K British record. That was all on course until the last 5K of the race. It was in Beijing. I hadn't probably adapted as well as I could have and learn to do for the future, because still feeling quite amateur at this point, even then.
And when was this, sorry? This
was 2015.
Okay.
So, and I learned a lot from that, and the wheels fell off with 5K to go, and the British record didn't get broken that day. And I finished about 24th. So just missing out on those goals. But it, as I say, each year it was improving, and I was setting small, realistic goals to make sure it happened. I didn't just go, right, 2012 didn't happen, I want to go and win the Olympics. There had to be steps along the way.
Yeah.
And that's when Rio, by the time I got round to that year, I had broken the 20K record earlier in the year. And touch wood, I didn't get injured. I knew I was going to go to the Olympics. I had sort of surpassed the point of trying to qualify. I was now there to try and compete. And that was really exciting. But again, my aim was a top 30 finish at the Olympic Games. I had no idea I would lead most of the race and then finish 6th, which was probably the race that changed my career.
Yeah. And I think after that, you've spoken about the fact that you suffered for a period of time of some quite high anxiety after that.
It was about 12 months later. Normally you have quite a break after the Olympics. The Olympic cycle is long, it's hard work, it's emotional, and it had gone so well. And basically we finished, had a few weeks off in September, but then straight back on again because we had a home World Championships in London, the same Olympic course from 2012. And it just felt like redemption. It was all coming around perfectly, having missed London 2012. London 2017 was going to be my race. I was going to aim for a medal in front of a home crowd. It was going to be really, really special. Everything had changed for me. You know, I was well supported. I had an ASICS deal. It was very bizarre that this lad who just did sport for fun 10 years ago was now sort of at this sort of level of British sport. And I remember that race coming round. The London Diamond League hosted a 1 mile event for me because I'd finished top 8 at the Olympics the year before. Yeah. Any other athlete that did that basically had an event on at the London Diamond League at the anniversary games. So they were brilliant and put on a 1 mile and said, Tom, you've got to go and break the world record. If you're going to do this, we're going to do it in style. And I thought, oh my goodness. But I loved it again. I loved performing in front of a crowd. I really got up for it, and I broke that world record. And it almost accidentally heaped more pressure on that I didn't realise. You know, I asked for it all. I said, I would like race walking to get some more recognition. You know, can we have a Diamond League race? I remember the Rio commentary being on the red button by a couple of Aussie guys. A year on at the World Championships, it was BBC Two, Sunday afternoon telly with Steve Cram and Paula Radcliffe. How things had changed, and the focus was, can Tom Bosworth win a medal? So I just felt a huge responsibility that I brought on myself to deliver. And in race walking, there's red cards, and if you get so many of them, you get disqualified. And I had one disqualification in the last 10 years of my entire career, and it was on that day whilst I was leading the World Championships, just past the halfway point, in front of Buckingham Palace. It made for some good TV, but it
not so good for you.
Not so good for me. And that's where, the wheels massively came off personally. It was very much all I am is an athlete. What am I when it all goes wrong? I'd gone from, like I mentioned before Beijing, it was quite not amateur setup, but I was certainly learning my trade and how to prepare for big races. By now, I was spending a lot of my year away from home, away from my partner Harry. I was travelling a lot. It was many, many weeks at altitude, really hard work, quite lonely at times, and it just, I was riding this great roller coaster for so many years, and then it all came crashing down with that. And it wasn't so much about the result. I completely accept the disqualification. I was all over the shop. My nerves were all over the shop. So, my technique broke in that sixth lap, and you could see all the judges stepped in with the red cards. It was not that. It was how badly it sort of fell apart and made me realise, oh God, if I didn't have this, what else do I have? I had nothing else, and I'd pushed quite a lot of my family and friends away. I didn't see them, and then it just became a negative spiral of repeating that behaviour, but also then not enjoying the sport because I was questioning everything in my life, and that if I didn't have that, and if I wasn't performing, what else did I have?
Yeah, and you've spoken about a technique. You've talked about and now it's completely gone out of my mind. The foundations, the four foundations.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think, I think today there's much better acceptance and understanding by people that athletes can go through these, obviously massive highs, but usually when you have a massive high, it's followed somehow by a massive low. And I think in business, it's a little bit still something that people aren't necessarily comfortable to talk about. Anything like this tool that you had, anything like that, any experiences that you had that helped you get through that period, I think would be really, really beneficial for people.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a real focus in sport because ultimately sport requires the individual performance. There isn't much more you can do, but we're seeing that drip down now to real life and how if you've got happy people, it sounds so cheesy, but it's so true.
Yeah.
If you've got happy people, you've often got the best performing people, whether that be in place of work or just in working relationships or home relationships. That usually becomes very, very clear quite quickly. And nowadays we're more happy to talk about it, but it's still, especially I think for men, it's really quite difficult. And I think it's quite challenging to know the difference between mental health and when suffering with anxiety or depression, and it's not just a bad day.
Yeah.
It's becoming much more than that. And I think that's what I didn't learn as things spiraled over the next 12 to 18 months. I didn't learn that I'd got into an awful place in my head. Like I say, you're allowed a bad day, you're allowed a good day, but if it becomes a bad week and then a bad month, and then, it's only dark thoughts and it's taken over your life, that's a mental illness, that is, and you need to get some help with that, and that's what I learned. And thankfully I reached out to UK Athletics and they supported me with getting some mental health support. And this is one of the tools that I learned in that was to what makes up your foundations to your house. If you were a house, it wouldn't stand without all of your foundations. And for me, it wasn't just being an athlete. It was being a partner to Harry, a dog owner, a son to mum and dad, and all of that made up my foundations and kept me strong. So I had to rebuild those that weren't there, or I had to create them. And that's an awesome way of looking at life, I think, because it just shows you can write it out. I drew a little picture, a little square, and you can write in each four corner, what are your four foundations? If you can't write four, then I think that's a huge highlight to something's missing somewhere. And that was massive for me, and that helped change my perspective of life pretty much. I think is a wonderful tool that he's again Leeds-based Dr. Alan Johnson. He taught me that, and that was just as I say, life-changing, and can be a great tool for people to use.
Yeah, absolutely. A previous manager of mine used to talk about a similar thing, but it was saying that, you can't have just three things. You can't have three foundations. It needs to be four, because if it's three, you take one away, then, you imagine it like a three-legged stool, you fall over. Whereas, if it's four and you lose one, you've still got a solid base. Even, it's a great, I think a really good tool, and something that I think taking the time to step back on life and really reflect and, what are those foundations for me is a great tool. And it's great to hear that it got you through some tough times. Because then, then a couple of years later, you were working up towards obviously the Tokyo Olympics. So, and I think in the run up to that, you actually found yourself in, would you call it kind of the peak of your, I don't know what you call it, the peak of your career as an athlete?
Totally. Sort of a training peak. I'd been training, heading into Tokyo, 10 years of solid full-time training. I remember the World Championships were in Doha at the end of the year, so they were end of 2019, so they were pretty extreme championships to go and compete. We raced at midnight because it was so hot under the floodlights. It was a really quite cool race, but that's ironic because it was very, very warm. And that again took a lot of preparation and teamwork there. I had a physiologist, I had a lot of support from UK Athletics to make sure I was in the best shape I could be. Especially that summer, I had a bit of the start of sort of my back injury that basically ended my career. That first show flared up, I guess, in the summer of 2019, and I had to take I think it was about 6 or 8 weeks off. 6 weeks before the World Championships, I'd only just started training again. We'd been doing other bits, and we'd been doing heat work here at Leeds anyway to try and prepare for those really extreme conditions. And then we went to South Africa, but again, I was not doing the mileage we needed, and for a 20k athlete, you need to be doing a lot of mileage in a lot of hot or altitude conditions, basically. And I thought, how is this World Championships going to go? I had a top 8 or a medal at every championships except the Worlds, and I really wanted to get a top 8 to sort of collect the set, I guess. In athletics, a top 8 is the equivalent of a final because you've got 8 lanes on the track. So there's a real meaning to that saying. So I really wanted to get that, but I just thought there's no chance with me being injured. And this mindset that I'd gone through really helped me not care. Obviously, I cared. I was training every day, working very hard, but I didn't care the outcome. It wasn't make or break. And I think that was massive to how I approached that race, because I remember, again, racing is... this percentage has got more and more as I've got older. I think it's now like 80% mental on race day. The physical work's been done. So I remember being stood in that cool room. If you imagine a big tent with air conditioning with about 70 athletes in it, everyone in ice vests, shorts and a singlet, and everyone looking quite nervous, or some excited, some debuting, some like me had been around a while. And I had my headphones in and I was singing along to the Greatest Showman soundtrack because I knew it was something that would just pick me up. And I was in great spirits because I didn't care. I had no pressure on me because I'd been injured. I just went into this race knowing it was going to be carnage conditions. Starting off steady, not flying out the blocks was going to be really important. piece of sort of strategy. And I did exactly that. Started off in last place, whatever that was, 70th place, and worked my way up as the race went on. And it was brutal. Watched people keel over through drinks tables and all sorts. It was brutal race. And looked up, I remember clocking with about 5k to go, 6k to go, and I saw my name on these huge boards and were in the positions, and I was like, I'm in the top 10. I feel great, I'm going to keep going, you know. And I was just getting faster each lap. Moved up to about 5th or 6th. Then the heat and everything just hit me like a ton of bricks, because it was just extreme. And I don't remember much of the last few K, but I finished up 7th, so I got my top 8. I was delighted. There's some awesome pictures from that. And it just taught me so much that day, was to not care about the outcome and stick to the race plan. And that's then how I looked at training through the winter. Everything went well. I started the 2020 season indoors with a 5K, set a world lead. In fact, one of the fastest 5K times in history. 6 days later, went and broke the 10K British record. We were about 2 weeks away from my first 20K, and then the world stopped and COVID hit. And I was very much like, I don't care. It was a huge disappointment, because I knew I was 30 years old. It had all prepared so well. I remember my coach saying to me that winter, you've not missed a single day of training. Not a single day, like not through illness, not through injury, not through anything. And I was just enjoying it. And it was that don't care attitude that okay, some days are going to be really good, some days are going to be bad, but as long as I'm turning up and getting it done, that's all that matters. So it was gutting. I then tried to keep that mindset. Obviously, we all were, and it was a world of unknowns through that summer. The Olympics were postponed a year, and it was time to rebuild. And I was pretty tired, I'll be perfectly honest, after that last 12 months. So I set out again to get back to that shape, back to that form. And, you know, I think I probably would have got a medal that summer with the way things were going. I'd love to have seen what I could have done over 20K, and that would have indicated exactly what sort of shape I was in. But I was flying, and I'd learned so much about myself. I pushed hard, still with the same attitude, but I pushed hard, and my body just wasn't going to do it not at that level for another year without a bit of a proper break. And unfortunately, that back injury that flared up in 2019 flared up a lot worse. And it just plagued, unfortunately, my build-up into Tokyo 2021. And whilst very upset after the race, because I'd hoped that was my Olympic medal moment, I did, again, stand in that call room. I looked around at my peers and my friends and thought, yeah, I'm at another Olympic Games. This is the pinnacle. I made it through a pandemic, through everything, and just tried to enjoy the race. And I did take in that last lap, that last 1K or 2K lap, and just soaked it in and just thought, yeah, this is pretty awesome. I'm 20th or something like that, and 7 years ago I'd have been delighted with 20th. I'm really disappointed with it now, but I could appreciate that those guys ahead of me had just worked just as hard.
Yeah.
They'd had that break that perhaps I didn't have. And that's what you need in sport. You need things to go your way, and I didn't have it that day. And I walked off and had a good cry, and the next day started again.
Yeah. I'm interested to go back to something you just said about that change in mindset from being really focused on the outcome and driven by that to, use your own words, to not caring about that. What helped you make that switch in mindset? Yeah,
it's very much with sport, and I think with everything, it's got to be about, people talk about focusing on the process, not the outcome. And I always did that. My coach was really good at drilling that into me. But for me, it was the change of mindset was actually, I'm still going to go home, walk in the house, and Harry's going to be there, and my Labrador's going to be there, and my mum and dad will be at the end of the phone, and my friends are going to be there, and it's the end of the season, I can go down to the pub for once and just relax. All of that's the same. Nothing else changes. If I win a medal, if I come last, they're all still there, and that's what made it change. Ultimately, life's about, if you get fired tomorrow, your family's still going to be there, your friends are still going to be there, your pets, your kids, they're still going to be there. if you don't feel like you don't succeed at something, or you're going to get replaced, that should be the standout message to you. If you're not going to succeed at that and you're going to get replaced, you do not need to lose sleep over it. Because, as I say, your family, your friends, everything's going to be there at the end. Obviously, there's real life outcomes there of finances and those sorts of things. But it's usually, if you take that sort of expectation and pressure away, you'll then succeed at what you need to do anyway.
Yeah.
And that's what I found from that point, from basically end of 2018 onwards. All my races were pretty good.
Yeah.
Even if towards the end they were bad, how I would hope. I know what level I was at that point with my back injury. I was delighted to have achieved what I did every time, because every single race I was going into, I knew exactly where I was at, and that nothing was going to change on the other side of it.
Yeah.
Everybody was going to be there.
Yeah. Interesting. Makes a lot of sense. So, as you know, the podcast is called Sports and Outdoor Mentors, and I often talk about the benefit of coaches and mentors. Clearly, as an athlete, the benefit of coaches is clear. But what about mentors? Did you have anybody that you could kind of rely on to talk to them about anything, to kind of use them as that sounding board and those maybe guide rails for you through maybe in your athletic career and also today? Yeah,
I'm not sure I class them as a mentor exactly, but they certainly played that role. There's a few people. I mean, I remember my sports psychologist who worked with me around sort of race strategy and things like that. It was really good to use him as a sounding board. Andrew Manley, again from Leeds Beckett, we started working together in 2013, I think, and that was about that sort of not making the World Championships, not being selected that year for Moscow, and then setting up A, B and C goals, which are a well-known sort of strategy, and that really helped, and that grew to the A, B, C goals, but they then became very performance related. When I was making races and was making major championships, it was, what would I be happy with, what would I be content with, and what would be okay with, and that stayed with me, and even sort of random life conversations. He was there to have and give his feedback, I guess you would call it, but I always knew what I'd get from him was something very level-headed. Yeah. I wish I could have that sort of level-headedness. And the other one, I don't want to name him because hopefully he won't see it, so it's not doesn't get a big ego off it, but it is Alistair Brownlee, who's a pretty well-known triathlete. Yeah. He's very, very successful, Leeds-based. We got to know each other here, probably more in the pub than on the track, but we became quite good friends. And he's really helped me with various bits of being an athlete, from helping with career choices and I guess issues or things that you just don't even think about are going to be a topic of conversation. He was quite a good person again to run the most strangest questions by, and he's really helped me post career as well with all sorts of decisions I've had to make and where my career's gone since.
Yeah. Okay. Let's come back to that. I just want to go back to the ABC goals because it's probably something I'm aware of, but if it's athletics based or sports based, maybe not. So would you mind just kind of explaining a little bit about how that works?
Yeah. The ABC goals are sort of Andrew would get me to write out or discuss. They were very much about not just getting obsessed with the best possible outcome. If it was the Olympic Games, the best possible outcome that I think is realistic when I went into Rio was getting a medal.
Okay.
But if that was it, if that was the only thing to aim for, and I didn't succeed, which probably was, 10% chance of happening, that's going to be a pretty disappointing outlook, even if I finish 4th or 5th.
Yeah.
So what was brilliant about the ABC goals is, a B goal would have been 4th to 15th position.
Okay, so that medal was your A.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
And then the C goal would be, okay, I want to finish top 30. That's the sort of minimum. So 30th to 16th, that's the C goal. But it was interesting when that was a sort of at my top of my game. But beforehand, it was time orientated because 20k long way. We had to get the qualifying time for various competitions and so on. So at one point, it was the dream A goal was getting the qualifier for the World Championships.
Yeah.
The B goal would be a PB, but not quite that qualifier, and the C goal would be as close to that PB as I could.
Yeah.
So that way, I'd leave the race and the outcome with some sort of positive mindset about it.
Yes.
Because otherwise, it's very, very hard to motivate yourself to go training when it's raining outside twice a day. You're tired, you want to go out with your friends, you're missing family events and so on. It's very hard to motivate yourself for 15 years, day in, day out, if you're only obsessed with that A goal and that is your only option to look at something as a success.
Yeah. And is that something that you have been able to take into your, let's say, current professional career?
Yeah, massively. What I've also learned since retiring and sort of not being surrounded by very, very driven people is I can now see why I made quite a good athlete.
Okay.
Because I am an incredibly driven individual, and I'm really proud to say that. If I do something, I see it through to the end, and I can see why I made a good athlete, let alone the sporting, physical side of it that I needed. But I think that's a huge issue for anybody is quitting, and or doing the bare minimum because they're so obsessed, or even society's told them that the only positive outcome is the very, very, very best, and anything in between is a failure, which is so wrong. And I think that's a massive issue that all workplaces have, friendship groups have. Oh, he's got the best car, so even if I got a car that I really want and I can afford, but it's still going to be a failure compared to others. No. If that's what you want and what you can afford, that's a success. Yeah. Whatever it is, that's a rubbish example, but it makes the point that everybody needs those scalable goals that are relatable to them and not what they've just seen on social media or what their mate has got or what you haven't got.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think with a 12-year-old son, I worry about this topic a lot. The social media topic. I think if I had been his age now with social media, I don't even want to imagine the kind of either trouble I would have got into or negative mindset that I would have found myself in. I think it's not easy for kids these days.
No, not at all.
So, other than that, the ABC goals that we've talked about, and other than the obvious, I guess, connections and network that you have, what else, or is there anything else that you've been able to bring from your athletic career now into your commercial career?
I think it probably sounds quite bad on what I do now. I like there not being too much pressure on what I do. It's funny, there's obviously work-related pressures there, but racing was a huge one-day event that it either went very well or didn't, no matter how successful your goals are. And I don't miss that. So I think something I try and bring to what I do now is just a balanced attitude at it. If I can't deliver something that day, I won't give up. I'll try and deliver it the next day. But that's basically it. Is I've tried to remove as much pressure. Yeah. Like you asked me this before we started recording whether I go training. Well, and I said I exercise. I don't go training because I just want to go and enjoy sport with there's zero outcome goals on it. I'm there. I'm going to the gym. I'm going for a run. And if I run really slowly, if I run really fast, it doesn't matter. Yeah. And I'm just trying to do it for enjoyment. same goes for work. I'm trying to get the most out of what I need to do. But if I can't, then it's not the end of the world, and I try not to take that home.
Yeah.
And let it hang over me.
Yeah. Well, I guess in some way that's another good example of the attitude of being not focused on the ultimate goal, and
That's
more
it.
kind of on the process and enjoying that.
Yeah. Enjoyment in life is, you can enjoy something that's difficult. You can enjoy something that's hard. You can enjoy something that you actually don't enjoy too much. You can enjoy the process of achieving something. Even if you really hate your job, you can still take enjoyment from succeeding, from getting through a day, for managing a situation that perhaps could be quite tricky. And you can take success and enjoyment from managing that well.
Yeah.
That's where I think people need to look at success in a very different light than it's just that outcome goal.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm wondering if when you were throughout your career, if you had any kind of clear personal inspirations, because I asked this question because of the discipline that you did, obviously race walking. Now here I might well embarrass myself, but to my memory, I can't think of anybody within GB anyway that was at the same sort of level as you before you. So it's not like you had an obvious person to look up to or aspire to. So is there anybody else that, either from an athletics point of view or personally or professionally, that has been a strong inspiration to you in life, and just kind of expand a little bit as to why?
Yeah, there were a couple of good athletes who race walked to sort of a world level prior to me, but before them, we've got to go back to the 60s where we won a lot of medals, but that's a long time ago now. Yeah. I wasn't alive.
Yeah, me too.
So yeah, exactly. We sort of had to rebuild the sport a little bit along the way, and that made it harder a lot of the time. There were no sort of, the governing body didn't know what a good race walk at age 19, 20 looked like. So that certainly made it challenging. But inspirations wise, it was sort of anybody who believed in me. It certainly inspired me, because even to this day, to sit here and say that I've had a 15 long year international career that and achieved the things I have, for the kid who loves sport. I loved sport as a kid, but I always watched it. I was always been built like this. I was never been built to play rugby or football or anything like that. So school PE was really tricky. I loved playing and taking part in sport, but I hated that team sport aspect because I got battered as a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
So I love watching sport, and I thought that would be my relationship with sport, would be just on the telly. So anybody who believed in me and saw something in me as an endurance athlete, they were my inspiration. My first coach, my second coach, the sort of lecturers here who were / coaches, officials, volunteers, who just loved the sport of athletics and wanted us to do well. It was that sort of unofficial team that I had around me that became my team, that really did give me such a positive feeling towards the sport for so long.
Yeah. And what about your family and Harry? What role did they kind of play over the years?
I think this is a really important role for sport. They didn't. They had no role. And what I mean by that, they had a massive supportive role, and that's it. There was no pushy parents. Yeah. There was no cheerleading from the side. They just cheered and gave me a hug whether I came first or last after every race. And that was all I needed from them. And I think that's all anybody in that role should do, because there's enough pressure on the athlete from themselves, from sponsors, from external avenues like that they do not need home pressure. That's where they need to escape from all of that, is to be able to go to mum and dad or to go to your partner and just have a hug and have a laugh and talk about something else.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great. So what's the most valuable piece of advice you've ever received?
Ooh, that's a good question. Most valuable piece of advice. I mean, we've probably already addressed, as I say, the sort of foundations was a fantastic piece of advice, which taught me to not take life too seriously. I think that's probably it. I mean, and the other one we've addressed. My second coach, Andy Drake, who was here, he always would say it's think about the process, not the outcome, and we've already spoken about that. But he would always say, off you go now, which became his slogan, whether that's in training or in a race. And we hated him for it because it was such a meaningless saying, but it became iconic for him, and it was almost like his message of approval a little bit. So I guess it's not a message, a piece of advice or anything like that, but it's just the similarity or having that feeling of you're doing something right, you're going in the right direction, quite literally. Off you go now from my coach it still, as you can see, puts a smile on my face, really. And I think that's the familiar feeling of things are going to be all right. You're doing okay, whether that be on a rubbish day in Roundhay Park when it's raining, or at the World Championships. It's the same. I guess what I'm trying to say there is what you do at that level is really important to be remembered at that top level.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've touched on already your new professional career. What other projects have you going on? I saw recently that you've just announced that you're going to be doing some commentary or some work with Eurosport. But what else is going on in your life? What else are you doing now to fill all that time that you're not training? Goodness me, I never thought I'd say I'm busier than ever before, but I really am. Alongside, I'm trying to balance the two worlds of looking after athletes, the sports management side of things, and then my own commercial sort of work and those opportunities that have come, I guess, from getting to the level I did as an athlete, doing some commentary, doing some presenting and that sort of bits, which I really enjoy, comes quite naturally to me. Yeah. So trying to sort of make the most of that during Olympic season. I'm also quite passionate about getting people active, getting people moving and using the wonders of walking, which I think we really learnt about walking as a fitness tool during COVID. Yeah.
But it's kind of unsurprisingly got forgotten as a lot of sort of the messages and lessons learned from COVID have already. So my aim is to really create something unique, something new. Two avenues. I want walking prescribed. That's what I want to achieve is health practices, GP practices, giving a tool which I've created to help people start moving. Might be just around the house, might be just around their garden. They might not be confident or able to leave the house. And just starting to spend some, my minute by minute plan is quite literally as it sounds, spending a few minutes on your feet, a few minutes walking, and how that grows for people. And having that prescribed, I think, it should be the first sort of part to benefiting people's health. And the other sort of line to walking with purpose is almost creating a workplace well-being minimum standard, I guess, because people work really hard or sit behind a desk all day, and fresh air and movement makes people think better, communicate better, learn better. And that doesn't exist right now. And I'm really, really passionate about using walking as the catalyst for that. Maybe not at the speeds I walked, but, just trying to utilise minutes on feet and how that can really, really change people's lives fitness-wise and professionally-wise.
Absolutely. I'm interested, where did the workplace angle come from? Because for somebody that hasn't necessarily lived within that environment, it's almost quite an unusual angle, I would say, but something that I fully support. And I think as a sports and outdoor industry, we're probably one of the better at this, but nevertheless could still do a lot more. And when I look at the global employee engagement figures, which are horrendous, with less than 25% of employees engaged in their roles, having some kind of encouragement for a little bit of physical activity, which walking is obviously the easiest access point into that, seems like a no-brainer. But yeah, what kind of drew you to that aspect, that angle?
I got a lot of questions during COVID about how people could utilize walking because it was in their local area, they couldn't travel, people were stuck at home. And that made me realize that actually you can fit walking into your day quite easily. You don't have to work up a sweat. You can do it in your suit. You can do it in your pajamas. You can do it walking the dog. You can do it taking a meeting on a phone call. You can walk the kids to school rather than driving. So it's how you fit that into your busy lives. We all have really busy lives and limited time. So I thought, you know what, you don't need a shower after it. You don't need to think about buying a load of expensive equipment. You don't need bike, shoes, so on. And that's where it really stemmed from, is actually this can work for anybody. And that's where the two avenues grew, was the workplace well-being through movement and that sort of walking, prescribing walking for health benefits. So yeah, we're running a few pilots and having a few conversations, and Walking with Purpose has had a soft launch. It's there on social media. We don't have many followers yet. We don't have much information out, but it's growing, and it's really exciting, and I'm intrigued myself. I don't know where it's going to go. It's snowballed really quickly in the last 12 months. Okay. So I'm just trying to keep control of it a little bit right now, but it's really exciting, and I just have really loved the engagement that's come from it, and the real positive sort of response I've had every time I pitch or talk about it and talk about the idea. And it's so simple, but it's needed somebody who, I guess, has the credibility of walking to galvanise and be the catalyst to, I guess, maybe give a kick up the backside to some of the government, the way healthcare works, and see if we can, I believe something as simple as this, which is simple changes, very small changes in people's lives, could change people's lives.
Absolutely. And if you think about the pretty horrific state the health services in a country like the UK, as you said, something that is pretty simple and easy to initiate could have a massive positive impact.
Yeah, I mean, we could lower GP rates and the demand on them. We could give people, I think exercise and movement as well naturally gives people a sense of worth and achievement. Yeah. If people say, oh no, I couldn't possibly walk for 20 minutes, all right, well, we'll start with 5 minutes then. Oh, I can do that, yeah. And add a minute on every day. And that's the sort of minute by minute plan. And suddenly you've got somebody walking for 20 minutes who said they couldn't do it a month ago.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Okay, so normally I ask a question around what 3 pieces of advice would you give to somebody to become, let's say, a CEO of a company. But I'm going to do it a little bit differently today. Okay. So I'm going to look for 3 pieces of advice, but in different stages of people's lives or careers. So let's start out, if you're a teenager who's, maybe starting to get into sport and athletics, but you're not sure about, really committing to it and, taking it more seriously. What advice would you give that person? Maybe it's even yourself when you were 10, let's say, before you joined the athletics club, or maybe at 12 or after a year in.
I think enjoying whatever you do at that age is crucial, because if you don't enjoy it at that point and you want, or you think you can succeed at it, you're not going to, because 20 years is a long time from age 10 to age 30. So to do that as a career and not enjoying it at age 10 or 11 doesn't bode well. So enjoy what you do, and the performance and the pressure can come later. It will come later. So make sure, I guess that's a message probably to parents as well. There isn't any at that point either. And I kept turning up. That's all I did. I kept turning up, and I started off once a week, then twice a week, through enjoyment, through being encouraged from my parents and my first coach, and there was never any pressure put on board. So it's not just sport. I think is really important. It's, if you enjoy playing an instrument and you're not very good at it, you'll enjoy painting, you enjoy maths, but you're rubbish at it, keep doing it, because it's okay just to enjoy something and not be very good at it. You don't have to be an expert the first time you do it.
Yeah.
I think social media is trying to teach us otherwise, but that message is so important. The most successful people in their industry probably didn't start off out on day one as an expert.
For sure.
They learned their trade and they enjoyed what they did. That's what I did, and look where it took me. So turning up and enjoying something is how you should start everything.
Okay, so next time of life, so you're a professional athlete, or you're giving advice to a professional athlete that at that stage where probably the next level is that they reach that pinnacle of representing their country at the Olympics. What advice would you give them to take that big step and, you know, reach that pinnacle?
Oh, you know, the Olympic Games is the pinnacle of sport for a reason. If there's something you can sacrifice, you need to. Is a pretty tough thing to hear, but it doesn't need to be forever. You know, there is only one day, usually, depending on your event, one day to compete at the Olympic Games and one chance. There'll be another one in 4 years' time, but who knows where you're going to be at that point. So if you want to succeed at the Olympic Games, you've got 18 months, 12 months, 6 months, whatever it is to go. You leave no stone unturned. You have to do that to be the very best. And that way you can stand on the start line confident, because you've done everything you can to get yourself in the best position to be standing there in your trainers, in the British kit or whatever nation, with their Olympic rings on you.
It's funny you mentioned sacrifice, because you've talked about this a lot before, and I had it in my notes but had missed it, so I'm glad you brought it back up. Because I guess then my question would be, and I'm sure I know the answer, but that's good to ask it, is looking back, considering what you sacrificed, do you regret those sacrifices?
I don't regret the sacrifices. I wish I had a bit of a better balance to them, because what I worked out is sacrificing every single day. Yes, you need to do that. It doesn't mean you need to make poor judgments every single day. Sometimes it's better for you to have a day off, have a rest day when you're really, really tired, than just push on for the sake of pushing on, because the injury, illness as a result. And it goes the same for perhaps those sacrifices like missing a friend's wedding, missing whatever that might be. You're probably not going to lose anything by having one day. And you might even be happier for going to that day, and so train better as a result. So getting that balance right. If that wedding is 5 days before the Olympic Games, it's probably not the best idea to go to. But if it's 6 months before, you know, take that day for yourself and then crack on, because you'll probably be happier for it.
I think that's a great addition to the advice. So then last phase is, so you're a professional athlete, you're at the top of your game. What advice would you give to that person to make sure that they're also setting themselves up for life after being a professional athlete?
I think because I never thought I could achieve what I did, I was always quite ready to, or always ready to start making those connections and have those conversations. So when I did retire, I walked quite literally into another role, and I had something to work for, income coming in, and all those sorts of things. So for me, is knowing it won't last forever, but enjoy it whilst it's going well. You know, because you just don't know when it's over. March 2020, I was in the form of my life. I thought I'd be competing at Paris and maybe even LA. I had no idea how bad my back was going to get so quickly after that. I wish I could have enjoyed those years of even more than I did, knowing now how quickly it could all disappear. And you always think you're different. Every athlete does. Oh, I've taken good care of myself. I've not had any injuries. I'm going to keep going. It's fine. It's funny. Every single athlete who's retired will tell you that something catches up with you, whether it's your head and you're just done with it, you can't push yourself anymore, or whether it's your body and that can't work to the level it did. one of them is going to catch up with you. So just keep enjoying it, and always have in the back of your mind, doesn't need to be taking any effort or any energy away from what you're doing, but be considerate and think about what comes next.
Great. So as we already discussed, the goal of this podcast is about providing inspiration and advice, lessons learnt, to help people on maybe their professional career or their athletic career. So based on that, is there anything that we should have talked about that we haven't done? Anything that you would want to add to what we have talked about?
No, I don't think so. I think what the message I always try and get across, especially when I go into schools, is that one of, enjoyment and just taking part for the sake of it. But I think the message I wanted to try and get across through all of this is successful people are happy individuals with every aspect of their life. And then what I mean by that is they don't have to be happy with everything they're doing, and they just need things going on. No, anybody who's successful doesn't just have one thing going on in their life, and they're happy with that. Even if they're awful at whatever they're doing, but they really enjoy juggling, and they're doing that as well as being a dad, holding down a job. It's just about how you juggle everything and enjoy that process, rather than successful people just do one thing, they're great at it from the off, and they're born to succeed. It's very rare that someone is naturally that gifted and succeeds, because, as I say, on race day it's 80% mental.
Yeah.
And if you haven't got that mentality, that staying power, that commitment, you're probably not going to succeed.
Perfect. I think that's a great place to end. So thank you very much, Tom. I really appreciate your time, and I've really enjoyed the discussion because it's so different to the discussion that I normally have. So thank you for being open to do this.
Oh, my pleasure. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
And a big thanks to Leeds Beckett as well for allowing us to use their amazing facilities. And hopefully people can see behind us a little bit if the camera's not too out of focus in the back. But yeah, we're in an amazing location with phenomenal world-class facilities. So that's great. Thanks again, Tom.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, please like, subscribe and leave a comment. Thanks for your support, and see you soon for the next Sports and Outdoor Mentors episode.